This is a CPE 233 lecture 20 part 2. So what we've been talking about is interrupts, but now we're going to look at some of the practical aspects of interrupts. Okay, so this is the issue of using mechanical switches. And so when I mean switches, I mean a button or a switch on this thing. They're both mechanical devices. So what happens is, believe it or not, these switches have a bounce associated with them. So when you turn the switch on, it doesn't actually go on. It actually it will bounce and then go on. It'll before it goes from the on period, from the off period to the on period. It's going to bounce here, and it's you have to wait a while for it to stabilize. So although you think when turning a switch on looks like this, it actually looks like this. And so what I want to do is apply something to debounce the switch, because what you see here is these little bounces are on essentially millisecond level, and typically you have an interrupt service routine that's acting on a nanosecond level. So, for example, if you connected the switch to the interrupts, this would probably generate multiple interrupts, which is typically not what you want. So what you want to do is when you detect a button press like this, you want to wait a while, and then you come over here and you look at it. Okay, if after a while that button, whatever, is still on, then you're going to call it a valid button press. If it's off, you're going to say it was just noise, and you don't worry about it. Okay, so once again, when you turn the switch on or off, it's going to bounce. And remember, it bounces in both directions, going from on to off or off to on. And so you need to wait a while before you act on it. And then oftentimes they call this settling times. Okay, so switches have bounce. So this is going to cause big issues for if I connect this switch to like the interrupt pin on a microcontroller. So this is a switch off of Jamco, and you can see it. I buy a little cheap switch here, and it says bounce time 10 milliseconds. And the issue is it's not necessarily going to bounce for 10 milliseconds. What this spec means is after 10 milliseconds, the switch or the button output or whatever, it's guaranteed to be stable. Okay, so essentially there's a settling time of 10 milliseconds on this switch. And you can see this with any switch or button spec that you look at. So yeah, the issue is what we're going to do here to avoid this bounce is to apply some hardware, and you have an issue on this one. You got to deal with the bounce, so you have a choice of dealing with it hardware or firmware. And so we're going to deal it with both, but initially we're going to deal it with hardware, and I'm essentially give you a module that deals with the switch bounce. Okay, then in a late experiment you're going to do switch bounce in firmware. It's really important that pretty much you're able to apply the hardware, but it's also important that you understand how a firmware debounce works, because I typically like asking that question. It's not a big deal. We can talk more about that later. Essentially, it's really simple. If you detect a change in the button status, you wait a while, and then you look again. If that button is where it needs to be, then you're going to call it a normal, a valid press. Otherwise, you can consider it invalid, like it's noise or something like this. But anyway, for the first experiment, first time we're going to use this, we're going to use a hardware debounce, and I give you that hardware. It's not a big deal. So the issue with interrupts is that the pulse, that interrupt pulse, it can be too short or it can be too long. So the issue with the pulse being too short is that it may turn on in this fetch cycle and then turn off before the end of the execute cycle. So if that is the case, I have officially missed that interrupt. Okay, so that may have been a valid thing, but I missed it. Okay, and I don't want to miss those interrupts. Okay, so that's too short, but the interrupt can also be too long, And the issue with the interrupt being too long is that it could catch the interrupt, but it can come back here to the fetch state and to the execute state or whatever, and still see that interrupt there. And so it may go right back into an interrupt state for a second time based on that first interrupt. Okay, that's probably not what you want. So these signals can be too short and too long if you're connecting a signal to an interrupt. Now, oftentimes, if this is more of a problem with, I don't know, human-related things such as switches and buttons, but oftentimes you have hardware generating the interrupts, and it can be much faster and much more controllable. And we'll see that later also. But right now we're talking about something like a mechanical device such as a button and switch generating the interrupt. So what we want to do here is we've already debounced this thing. So it looks like this. We debounced it. The resulting signal looks like this. So it turns on. But what I want to do is control how long it turns on for. And therefore I have the ability to keep it the exact amount of time so it's not too short so I miss it, and it's not too long so I process the interrupt twice. I don't want to do that. Anyway, so I have a device out there that does this, and it's essentially called a one-shot. I mean, it's a really common device out there. It's fairly simple. Essentially, even though the signal input to this one-shot is long and it stays on like this, the output of the one-shot turns off, which gives me control over the length of that pulse, and that's what I want. So this is a one-shot. So this is just this is just a trivia question for you. A one-shot is also a monostable multivibrator. So what that means is there's one stable state. This is the stable state. This state right here, where it's up, where it's high temporarily, is the unstable state. So there's also astable multivibrators, which is a device that has no stable states. And this is commonly looks like this. I know I can't draw it very well. Look, it looks like that, which we all know is a clock signal. So it's essentially it's an oscillator. And there's also a bistable multivibrator. These bistable multivibrators are a classic digital device which has two stable states, and that's going to be a flip-flop. So it could be both stable in the high state and the low state. So there's your trivia of the day question. So question one here is how fast can you enable interrupts after an interrupt is taken? Okay, so this is important because remember, when you take an interrupt, the interrupts are disabled automatically. So I want to see how fast some dumb programmer can re-enable the interrupts. And this is important because you want to make, if you re-enable the interrupts inside the interrupt service routine, you stand the chance of going into another interrupt service routine from the interrupt service routine. So nested interrupts is not valid because we only have, it's not going to work because we only have one return address from the interrupt service routine, which is the CSR MEPC register. And so, it's not, I mean, it's totally valid to re-enable the interrupts during the interrupt service routine if you need to. I mean, typically we don't. But the idea here is if you do that, you got to make sure that interrupt pulse is gone. Okay, so the question here is how fast you can actually re-enable these interrupts inside the ISR. So to do that, the issue is going to be the first instruction in the interrupt service routine is going to be an instruction right here that re-enables the interrupt. So this is one of the new instructions that control the interrupt. So this is pretty much the same timing diagram that I looked at in part 1 here. So it goes into the typical interrupt. It gets the interrupt at the end of of the execute cycle, it goes into the interrupt cycle, and the interrupt turns off. Not a big deal, but this is the address of the next instruction. It gets stored in the MEPC. The address of the interrupt service routine gets put into the PC, and the first instruction here in the interrupt service routine is an instruction that re-enables the interrupts. Okay, so you can see that when I took the interrupts were disabled automatically, and MPIE turned on. So what I'm physically doing with this instruction is turning the interrupt enable back on. Okay, so this is the instruction that does it. It's actually not going to happen until the end of the execute cycle of this instruction here. And you can see I kind of indicated right there. There's a slight delay on that thing. Anyway, that's how fast I can turn these interrupts back on. Interrupts don't get re-enabled until a little after the execute cycle of that instruction, and so you can see that it's going to be, well, I don't know how to say it. The interrupts got disabled here, so it's a little over. It's a little over 2 clock cycles, and you could argue that it's 3 or something like that. But it's important to realize what's going on in this timing diagram. And I'm going to end that for part 2, and we'll go on to the next instruction in a minute.